The emergency transmission cut through every active channel across Council space. Ambassador Grell watched the holographic displays flicker with reports of another fallen world. 16 billion lives had vanished in 3 days. The Havoc swarm consumed everything in its path like a living flame spreading through dead grass. High Chancellor Bryn paced the chamber floor, her feathers ruffled in distress. Council representatives from 40 species filled the seats around them, and every face showed the same emotion. Fear, pure and simple fear. "We have lost Rannoch 7, Grell announced, his moth-like wings trembling. The defense fleet held for 11 hours before communication ceased. That brings our total military losses to 43%. Silence filled the chamber. 43%. Nearly half their combined forces gone in less than 2 months. "The swarm does not negotiate," said Commander Tuvine from his seat. "It does not retreat. It only consumes. We have tried everything according to our laws and principles." "Then perhaps our laws are insufficient," Bryn said quietly. The statement sent ripples through the assembly. The Council had maintained peace through careful diplomacy for 600 years. War was always a last resort, and even then, they fought with restraint and honor. Grell pulled up a new file on the central display. A blue and green world appeared, rotating slowly. "There is one species we have not consulted, the humans." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Humanity had joined the council only 8 years ago, and their reputation preceded them. They were young, aggressive, and possessed military capabilities that made older species nervous. "The humans have fought more wars on their single planet than the Council has fought in its entire history," Grell continued. "They have weapons we banned centuries ago, methods we consider barbaric." "Then why would we invite them to help?" asked another representative. "Because they win," Grell said simply. "Every simulation we run shows the same result. Our forces cannot stop the swarm. We need someone who understands total war." Bryn closed her eyes. "We would be opening a door we may not be able to close." "The alternative is extinction," Grell replied. "The swarm will reach Council core worlds in 6 weeks. We either call the humans or we prepare for the end." The vote took 3 hours. It passed by the narrowest margin in Council history. Grell transmitted the message himself, carefully wording it to request reasonable military assistance. Nothing excessive, just help. The human response arrived in 14 minutes. "Reaper fleet deploying. Clear all civilian traffic from conflict zones. Prepare medical facilities. Do not interfere with human operations." The message was cold and brief. No questions about the enemy. No negotiations about terms or payment. No requests for additional information. Just immediate mobilization. "What is the Reaper fleet?" Bryn asked her intelligence officer. The young officer's hands shook as he pulled up the classified files they had on human military structure. "It is their emergency response force, created after their 3rd global war. The file is heavily redacted, but what we know is disturbing. These ships are not built for peacekeeping or defense. They are designed for one purpose: extermination." Grell felt his wings go still. "What have I done?" 3 days later, the Reaper fleet arrived at the staging point on the edge of Havoc-controlled space. They came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 30 vessels, each one massive and dark. The hulls were black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No decorative elements. No diplomatic markings. No windows or viewing ports that suggested civilian areas. Lieutenant Pav, assigned as Council liaison, took a shuttle to the flagship. The closer he got, the more his scales rippled with unease. The human ship looked like it had been carved from a single piece of black metal. Weapons bristled from every surface. Point defense systems tracked his shuttle with cold precision. The docking bay was utilitarian. No welcome committee, no ceremony, just a single human officer waiting for him. "Lieutenant Pav," the human said, I am Commander Lane, follow me. They walked through corridors that felt more like tunnels. Everything was gray metal and harsh lighting. Crew members moved with mechanical efficiency, their faces blank and focused. No one spoke unless necessary. No one smiled. The bridge was a combat operations center. Displays showed enemy positions, weapons status, and tactical readouts. In the center stood a woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled back tightly, wearing a black uniform with minimal insignia. Admiral Rebecca Holt, she said without looking away from the displays. You are the Council observer. Yes, Admiral. I am here to coordinate our forces with yours. Holt finally turned to face him. Her eyes were cold gray, like winter ice. There will be no coordination. Your forces will maintain defensive positions around Council core worlds. The Reaper fleet operates independently. But Admiral, we can provide intelligence and support. Our forces are trained and ready to assist. Your forces are trained for defensive operations and peacekeeping, Holt said. What we do is neither. You will observe. You will relay information to your council. You will not interfere. Are we clear? Pav's translator struggled with her tone. It was not hostile, not emotional at all. It was simply final, like listening to a machine state operational parameters. I understand, Pav said quietly. Good, Holt turned back to the displays. Captain Cross, status report. A man with sharp features stepped forward. All vessels ready for combat operations. Targeting solutions uploaded. First strike package prepared. The target, Pav asked. Cross glanced at him. Mining colony on Havoc-controlled world designated target Alpha. Population approximately 40 million swarm organisms. Strategic value minimal but psychological impact significant. You plan to attack a mining operation. Pav was confused. That seems like an inefficient use of resources. Holt's expression did not change. We do not fight for territory or resources. We fight to send a message. By this time tomorrow, the swarm will understand what they face. What message? Pav asked. Admiral Holt pulled up imagery of the Reaper fleet's weapons systems. That mercy is not a human concept when it comes to existential threats. She pressed a button. All ships, this is Holt. Execute first strike protocol, leave nothing alive. The fleet moved forward as one. Pav watched the tactical display as 30 warships accelerated toward their target. No warning shots, no surrender demands, no hesitation at all. Admiral, Pav tried one more time. Perhaps we could try communication first. The Council has protocols for initial contact. Holt looked at him with those cold gray eyes. Lieutenant, your Council called us because your protocols failed. We are not here to follow your rules. We are here to win a war. If that troubles you, I suggest you report it to High Chancellor Bryn. Pav said nothing. He watched the fleet disappear from visual range, heading toward the target world. His translator implant provided a constant stream of human tactical communications. Clinical, efficient, emotionless. 6 hours later, the first reports came back. Target Alpha was burning. Every installation destroyed. Every living organism terminated. The swarm garrison had fought back hard but stood no chance against the coordinated assault. Casualty report from the Reaper fleet, 0. Casualties inflicted, 40 million swarm organisms in 6 hours. Pav's hands trembled as he recorded his initial report to the Council. They had asked for help from humanity. What arrived was not a rescue force but something far more terrifying. The humans had not come to save them. They had come to eliminate a problem. Permanently, completely, without mercy or doubt. And this was just the beginning. Dr. Alan Reed stared at the biological samples floating in containment fields. Havoc swarm tissue. Living, writhing, trying desperately to consume anything within reach. Even isolated cells attempted to attack the container walls. Remarkable regeneration rate, he muttered into his recorder. Neural structure distributed throughout the body, no central brain. Each segment retains memory and aggression patterns. A technician approached. "Doctor, Admiral Holt wants your assessment for the next phase." Reed nodded. 2 weeks had passed since Target Alpha. The Reaper fleet had struck 14 more swarm positions. Each time, total elimination. No survivors, no prisoners, just systematic extermination of every hostile organism. The Council was terrified, not of the swarm anymore, but of their supposed saviors. Reed found Admiral Holt in tactical planning with Captain Cross. Holographic displays showed swarm territory with red zones marked for assault. "Your analysis?" Holt asked without preamble. "The swarm is a biological weapon that evolved naturally," Reed explained. "They spread through spores and physical contact. Once they infest a world, they strip it completely. But they have a weakness. They are predictable." "Explain," Cross said. "They always prioritize breeding chambers and food storage. Protect those two things above everything else. If we target those specifically, they will respond emotionally despite being a hive mind." Holt's eyes narrowed. "Emotionally, you said they operate as a collective intelligence." "They do, but survival instinct overrides tactical thinking. Hit their nurseries and watch them panic." Reed pulled up his data. "I have developed a biological agent that targets their neural tissue. Airborne, fast-acting. It causes paralysis within seconds and death within minutes." Lieutenant Pav, who had been silently observing, spoke up. "That is a biological weapon. Those are banned under Council law." Reed looked at him calmly. "We are not members of your military, Lieutenant. We follow human protocols. And human protocols say that existential threats receive appropriate responses." "This is genocide," Pav insisted. "No," Admiral Holt corrected. "Genocide is eliminating a sentient species capable of coexistence. This is pest control. The swarm cannot coexist. It can only consume. We are doing what needs to be done." Captain Cross activated new tactical displays. "We have located 3 major breeding worlds. Hitting them simultaneously will cripple their expansion capabilities." "Do it," Holt ordered. "Dr. Reed, deploy your biological agent on all 3 targets. I want those worlds sterile within 48 hours." The operation launched at dawn cycle. Pav insisted on observing from the flagship bridge. He needed to see this himself to report accurately to the Council. Commander Iris Lane led the fighter wings. 300 small, fast craft launched from the Reaper fleet carriers. They moved like predatory fish, weaving through space in coordinated patterns. "Target 1 in range," Lane reported. Her voice was steady, almost bored. "Beginning deployment." The fighters released canisters that broke apart in the atmosphere. Green mist spread across the breeding world below. Within minutes, the effect was visible on long-range scanners. Swarm organisms stopped moving, fell, died in massive numbers. "Effective," Admiral Holt noted. "Continue protocol." But the swarm responded. Ships emerged from deeper in their territory. Hundreds of them, organic vessels grown rather than built. They swarmed toward the human fighters with suicidal aggression. Pav watched the tactical display with growing horror. "They will overwhelm Commander Lane's forces. We should send support." "No need," Cross said calmly. The human fighters switched tactics instantly. They formed defensive spheres, their weapons firing in perfect synchronization. Swarm ships died by the dozens. When one human craft took damage, 2 others covered its retreat. They fought with cold precision, no panic, no hesitation. "Lane, your status?" Holt asked. 18 enemy vessels destroyed. 2 of ours damaged but operational. Biological agent deployment complete on all 3 worlds. Estimated enemy casualties in the billions. Billions? Pav felt sick. He had seen war before. The Council fought with restraint, always offering surrender, always minimizing casualties. This was different. This was industrial-scale slaughter. "Admiral," Pav said carefully, "the swarm is trying to retreat from Target 2. Our sensors show transport ships evacuating breeding chambers." "Track them," Holt ordered. "Follow every ship, find where they run." "You intend to pursue?" Pav asked. "We intend to ensure they have nowhere to run to," Cross replied. "If they relocate, they will just rebuild. This ends when every nest is eliminated." Over the next week, the Reaper fleet hunted retreating swarm forces across 4 systems. They showed no mercy to stragglers. Every ship tracked down and destroyed. Every hidden colony found and burned. Dr. Reed refined his biological weapon twice, making it more effective each time. The swarm tried to adapt, but human science was faster. For every defense the swarm evolved, Reed created a new version of his agent. During a briefing, Admiral Holt received a priority transmission. She played it for the senior staff and Pav. It was from the swarm, actual communication rather than mindless aggression. "Human vessels," the translated message said, "cease hostilities. We withdraw from Council space. We seek negotiation." The room went silent. Pav felt hope rise in his chest. "They want to negotiate. This could end peacefully." Admiral Holt deleted the message. "No." "Admiral, they are offering to withdraw," Pav protested. "Is that not the goal, to protect Council space?" Holt turned to face him fully. "The goal is to eliminate a threat, not contain it, not negotiate with it. The swarm has consumed countless civilizations. They do not negotiate in good faith. They regroup and return. This ends now, permanently. But they are showing intelligence, communication. That makes them a sentient species under Council law." "I do not care about Council law," Holt said flatly. "You called us because Council law was insufficient. You wanted the swarm stopped. We are stopping it." Captain Cross pulled up intelligence reports. "We have located the Nexus, the central command cluster where the Hive Mother coordinates the entire swarm. It is heavily defended, deep in their core territory." "How long to prepare an assault?" Holt asked. 3 days, Cross replied. "Make it 2, Holt ordered. "I want this finished before the Council gets cold feet about their decision." Pav filed his report that night. He described what he had witnessed: the efficiency, the ruthlessness, the complete absence of hesitation or mercy in human operations. He explained that the swarm had offered to negotiate and humanity had refused. High Chancellor Brin's response came quickly. "Continue observation. Do not interfere. The Council is divided, but the majority supports completion of operations." Pav read the message 3 times. Completion of operations. Such clinical language for what he was witnessing. The Council had called the humans to save them. Now they were letting humanity commit extermination because they were too afraid to stop it. Or perhaps because, deep down, they wanted this outcome but lacked the courage to do it themselves. He looked out the viewport at the Reaper fleet, black ships moving through the darkness. Silent, efficient, merciless. Humanity had not come to save the Council. They had come to do what civilized species could not. They had come to be the monsters so others could keep their hands clean. The Nexus appeared on long-range scanners like a massive tumor in space. Organic structures grown over centuries, layered and interconnected, spanning an area larger than most moons. This was the heart of the Havoc swarm, the birthplace of every invasion force, the throne of the Hive Mother. Captain Vincent Cross studied the tactical displays with cold focus. Defensive positions identified. Approximately 6,000 swarm vessels in stationary defense. Another 2,000 on patrol routes. Weapon emplacements number in the tens of thousands. Admiral Holt stood beside him. "Our forces. 30 capital ships, 300 fighters, full missile complement, and Dr. Reed's final biological package. Odds are roughly 200 to 1 against us. Acceptable, Holt said without emotion. Lieutenant Pav could not believe what he was hearing. Admiral, those odds are suicide. Even with superior technology, the numerical disadvantage is too great. We should wait for Council reinforcements. Council forces would be slaughtered, Cross replied. They fight with honor and restraint. This requires neither. Then what does it require? Pav demanded. Admiral Holt finally looked at him. It requires being willing to do things that keep you awake at night, things you can never speak about at dinner parties, things that make your own people question if you are still human. She turned back to the displays. All ships, battle stations, prepare weapons release on my mark. The Reaper fleet moved forward in formation. Pav watched from the bridge of the flagship Retribution as they approached the Nexus. The swarm responded immediately. Thousands of organic ships launched, filling space with hostile contacts. Range in 60 seconds, the weapons officer reported. Deploy screening drones, Cross ordered. The human ships released thousands of small autonomous drones that spread out in a protective sphere. When the first wave of swarm vessels arrived, they flew directly into the drone field. Explosions lit up the darkness. Hundreds of enemy ships destroyed before they could even fire a shot. Second wave incoming, sensors called out. Launch fighters, Admiral Holt commanded. Commander Lane, clear us a path. Iris Lane's voice came through crisp and confident. Copy that. Wings 2 and 5 take the left flank. Everyone else follow me into the teeth. The human fighters swept forward like a blade through water. They fought in perfect coordination, each pilot covering others, their movements too fast and precise for the swarm to counter effectively. Energy weapons carved through organic hulls. Missiles found weak points with surgical accuracy. Capital ships advanced to position Charlie, Holt ordered. The Reaper fleet pushed through the chaos. Point defense systems fired continuously, creating walls of destruction around each vessel. Swarm ships that got too close simply ceased to exist, torn apart by overlapping fields of fire. Dr. Reed monitored his biological weapon status. Deployment systems ready. Once we are within range of the Nexus surface, I can release the agent. It will penetrate deep into the structure and kill everything inside within hours. How many casualties? Pav asked quietly. Reed checked his calculations. Based on biomass readings, approximately 150 billion individual organisms, maybe more. 150 billion lives. Pav tried to comprehend the number and failed. It was too large, too terrible. They chose this, Admiral Holt said, as if reading his thoughts. They spread across the galaxy, consuming everything. They had countless opportunities to stop. They chose expansion over coexistence. This is the consequence. The battle raged for 3 hours. The swarm threw everything at the human fleet. Suicide runs, biological weapons, ships that exploded themselves hopping to take human vessels with them. Nothing worked. The Reaper fleet cut through defenses with methodical precision. Finally, they reached deployment range. Dr. Reed, you are clear, Holt said. Reed pressed the release. Canisters shot from the Retribution's launch tubes, spreading across the Nexus in carefully calculated patterns. They penetrated the organic walls and released their payload deep inside the structure. Biological agent active, Reed reported. Neural disruption confirmed. The effect is spreading through their atmospheric circulation systems. On the displays, Pav watched the Nexus begin to die. Sections went dark. Movement ceased. The massive structure that had taken centuries to grow was dying in minutes. Then something unexpected happened. A transmission broadcast on all frequencies. Not tactical data or coordination signals. A voice. Female-sounding, though clearly not human. The Hive Mother. Human vessels, cease this attack. We surrender. We will withdraw from all territories. We will cease expansion. We will coexist peacefully. The swarm forces stopped fighting. Every ship went still, waiting. Admiral Holt's expression did not change. Maintain fire. Continue deployment protocol. Admiral, they are surrendering, Pav shouted. You must accept their surrender. This is the law of war. We are not bound by your laws, Holt replied coldly. The Hive Mother's voice came again, desperate now. Please, we can change, we can learn, we were wrong, give us a chance. Captain Cross muted the transmission. Admiral, the Nexus will be completely dead in 40 minutes. We should finish the operation. No, Holt said, I want to hear this. She unmuted the channel. You are destroying billions of lives, the Hive Mother pleaded. We have children, we have history. We are not just mindless hunger. Please stop this. Admiral Holt activated her own transmission, speaking directly to the Hive Mother. You destroyed 17 Council worlds before we arrived. You consumed billions of their citizens. Did they not have children? Did they not have history? You showed them no mercy. You gave them no chance to surrender. We did not understand, the Hive Mother said. We thought they were food, not people. We know better now. You know better now because you are losing, Holt replied. If you were winning, you would still be consuming them. This is not mercy speaking. This is fear. Yes, we are afraid, the Hive Mother admitted. Is that not enough? We are afraid and we want to live. Is that not the same for all species? Pav looked at Admiral Holt, seeing something flicker in her eyes for the first time. Doubt perhaps, or regret, but it passed quickly. Record this transmission, Holt ordered. Send it to the Council. Let them see that the swarm can communicate, can plead, can claim to have learned. Then let them know our response. She switched back to the fleet-wide channel. All ships continue operation. Target the Nexus core. I want complete structural collapse. Admiral, no, Pav grabbed her arm. You cannot do this. They surrendered. They are begging for their lives. Holt removed his hand gently but firmly. Lieutenant, your people called us because civilized methods failed. You wanted the threat eliminated. Watch closely. This is what elimination looks like. The Reaper fleet fired everything. Missiles, energy weapons, kinetic projectiles. The Nexus shuddered under the assault. Its organic walls tore apart. Atmosphere vented into space. The Hive Mother's transmission became garbled, then silent. Pav watched the tactical display as the greatest concentration of swarm life in the galaxy died. Not in battle, not fighting to the last, but pleading, surrendering, begging. And humanity killed them anyway. Nexus structural integrity at 5%, sensors reported. Imminent collapse. All ships withdraw to safe distance, Captain Cross ordered. The Reaper fleet pulled back as the Nexus tore itself apart. Chunks of organic material spun off into space. Internal fires consumed what remained. Within 20 minutes, nothing was left but debris and corpses. Threat eliminated, Admiral Holt announced. Prepare for cleanup operations. Pav stood frozen. The Council had called for help. Humanity had responded by committing genocide while the victims begged for mercy. What had they unleashed? Ambassador Grell received the transmission from Lieutenant Pav at midnight station time. He watched it alone in his quarters. The Hive Mother's desperate pleas, Admiral Holt's cold refusal, the methodical destruction that followed. He played it 3 times before calling an emergency council session. By dawn, every representative had seen the footage. The chamber filled with voices raised in anger, horror, and fear. Some demanded the humans be expelled from council space immediately. Others argued they had only done what was asked of them. The debate raged for hours. High Chancellor Bryn let them speak until they exhausted themselves. Then she activated the central display, showing casualty reports. The Havoc swarm is extinct, she said quietly. Every major colony destroyed, every breeding chamber eliminated. Scattered survivors are being hunted down as we speak. In 6 weeks, humanity has ended a threat that has plagued this galaxy for 3 centuries. At what cost? Grell demanded. They murdered surrendering enemies. They ignored pleas for mercy. They used weapons we banned for good reasons. They used methods that worked, countered Representative Munn. Our gentle methods failed. Our principles were worthless against an enemy that showed us no quarter. The humans did what we could not. They are monsters, Grell said. Perhaps, Bryn replied, but they are monsters we called. Lieutenant Pav arrived at the council station on a supply shuttle. He looked exhausted. His scales had lost their usual color. He had not slept properly in days. Tell us everything, Bryn said gently. Pav described what he witnessed, the efficiency, the lack of hesitation, the way human crews followed orders without questioning the morality, the biological weapons, the refusal to accept surrender, the cold arithmetic that counted billions of deaths as acceptable outcomes. But here is what troubles me most, Pav said. They are not mindless killers. Admiral Holt is intelligent and thoughtful. Captain Cross is a brilliant tactician. Dr. Reed showed genuine scientific curiosity. Commander Lane treated her pilots with obvious care. They are good people doing terrible things. How is that possible? Grell asked. Because they believe it is necessary, Pav explained. They have fought existential wars before, on their own planet, against themselves. They nearly destroyed their species 3 times. They understand that sometimes survival requires sacrificing principles. Representative Munn leaned forward. Did they seem troubled by their actions? Yes, Pav admitted. I saw it in small moments. Admiral Holt staring at casualty reports for too long. Dr. Reed drinking heavily after deploying his biological weapon. Commander Lane's forced cheerfulness that did not quite reach her eyes. They carry this weight, but they do it anyway. The council chamber fell silent. What do we do now? Someone asked. Bryn activated another display. It showed human fleet positions. The Reaper fleet is conducting cleanup operations, hunting down the last swarm remnants. They estimate complete eradication within 2 weeks. Then they will return to human space. And if we tell them to stop, Grell asked, if we order them to cease operations? They will ignore us, Bryn said. They made that clear from the beginning. They are not here as our servants or allies. They came to eliminate a threat. That mission is not complete until every last swarm organism is dead. Representative Tull, who had been silent until now, spoke. We face a difficult truth. The humans saved us through methods we find abhorrent, but they saved us nonetheless. 16 billion of our citizens died before we called them. How many more would have died if we had not? Does the math justify the method? Grell challenged. I do not know, Tull replied honestly. But I know that my world was next on the swarm's path. My family is alive because human weapons burned swarm colonies to ash. Do I have the right to condemn the very methods that saved them? The debate continued for days. Some wanted to try human commanders for war crimes. Others argued they had only followed the mission parameters the Council had set, even if not explicitly. Some wanted humanity expelled from the Council. Others feared making enemies of the species that just demonstrated such brutal efficiency. Meanwhile, the Reaper fleet continued its work. Commander Iris Lane led fighter wings through asteroid fields where swarm survivors hid. Captain Cross coordinated search patterns across 5 systems. Dr. Reed analyzed every biological sample to ensure no organism could regenerate the species. Admiral Holt directed it all with the same cold precision she had shown from the beginning. They found a small swarm colony on a remote ice moon. Only 3,000 organisms, mostly young, recently hatched, technically non-threatening. Admiral Holt gave the order anyway, eliminate them. Lieutenant Pav was still aboard the Retribution, filing daily reports. He watched this final operation with numb acceptance. He had protested so many times that his voice felt worn out. Nothing changed. The humans did what they came to do. "Those are children," Pav said quietly to Admiral Holt. "They have killed nothing, consumed nothing. They are innocent." Holt looked at him with those cold gray eyes. "They are swarm, they would grow, they would spread, they would consume. We are ending the cycle completely." "At some point this becomes evil," Pav said. "Perhaps," Holt agreed. "But it is necessary evil. The galaxy will judge us harshly for this. History will call us monsters, but the species we save will be alive to make that judgment. Is that not worth the cost?" "I do not know anymore," Pav admitted. The last swarm colony died under human fire. Dr. Reed confirmed no biological traces remained. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was extinct, removed from existence as thoroughly as if they had never existed. Admiral Holt recorded a message to the Council. Pav watched her write and rewrite it several times before finally settling on the words. "High Chancellor Bryn, this is Admiral Holt. Mission complete. The Havoc Swarm has been eliminated. Total enemy casualties approximately 400 billion organisms. Human casualties, 43 personnel wounded, 0 killed. The threat to Council space is permanently removed. The Reaper fleet will return to human space within 72 hours. We recommend increased border patrols to monitor for any biological remnants we may have missed, though our scans suggest complete eradication. Good luck." She ended the transmission and turned to Captain Cross. "Set course for home." "Yes, Admiral." Pav watched the human crew begin shutdown procedures. They moved with the same efficiency they had shown in combat. No celebration, no relief, just professional completion of assigned tasks. "Do you regret any of it?" Pav asked Admiral Holt. She was quiet for a long time. "Every day for the rest of my life I will think about the Hive Mother's final transmission. I will remember her voice begging for mercy. I will carry the weight of 400 billion deaths." She looked at him directly. "But I would do it again, because the alternative was letting your people die. Given that choice, I choose this guilt over that failure." "How do you live with it?" "Poorly," Holt admitted. "But I live, as do billions of Council citizens who would be dead without our intervention. That is the only comfort I have." The Reaper fleet departed Council space 3 days later. They left behind clean systems, empty worlds where the swarm once thrived, silence where there had been war. The Council held a final vote. By a narrow margin, they decided to send humanity an official thanks. The message was brief and carefully worded. It acknowledged the successful elimination of the swarm threat without explicitly praising or condemning human methods. Ambassador Grell drafted a personal message to Admiral Holt. He wrote it 7 times before sending it. "Admiral Holt, you did what we asked. You saved us, but you also showed us something terrifying about ourselves. We called you because we lacked the courage to do what needed to be done. We wanted our hands clean while yours became stained. Thank you, and I am sorry." The response came 2 days later, just 3 words. "Apology accepted, sleep well." Grell read those words and felt their weight. Sleep well. The humans had sacrificed their peace so the Council could have theirs. Earth's moon hung in the viewport as the Reaper fleet approached home. Admiral Rebecca Holt sat in her quarters watching it grow larger. After 8 weeks in Council space, the sight should have brought comfort. Instead, she felt nothing but exhaustion. A message waited from Earth Command. She opened it reluctantly. "Admiral Holt, you and your senior staff are ordered to report to Geneva Tribunal immediately upon arrival. Formal inquiry into Reaper fleet operations against Havoc Swarm. Full accountability review. Prepared testimony required. Admiral Chen presiding." Holt closed the message. She had expected this. Humanity might deploy forces like the Reaper fleet, but they also held them accountable. It was part of what made them different from monsters. At least they hoped so. Captain Vincent Cross found her an hour later. The crew knows about the tribunal. They are concerned. Tell them to focus on proper decommissioning procedures, Holt replied. The tribunal is my responsibility. We all followed those orders, Admiral. We all share the responsibility. Holt shook her head. Command responsibility falls on me. I gave the orders. I refused surrender. I authorized the biological weapons. This is mine to carry. With respect, that is garbage, Cross said bluntly. We all knew what we were doing. We all made choices. I could have refused your orders. Dr. Reed could have refused to develop those weapons. Commander Lane could have refused to deploy them. We did not. We own this together. The Reaper fleet entered Earth orbit 12 hours later. No welcoming ceremony. No media coverage. They came home quietly as they had left. The nature of their mission was classified. Most of humanity would never know what they had done out there in Council space. Geneva was cold and gray when Holt arrived. The tribunal building was old stone and modern glass, representing humanity's attempt to balance tradition with progress. Admiral Chen waited in a private conference room with 2 other senior officers and 3 civilian oversight members. Admiral Holt, please sit, Chen said formally. The inquiry took 3 days. They reviewed every action, every order, every casualty report. Holt provided testimony for 18 hours total. Captain Cross, Dr. Reed, and Commander Lane each gave their own accounts. On the second day, they played the recording of the Hive Mother's surrender. The room went silent as her desperate voice filled the air. Then they played Admiral Holt's response and the footage of the Nexus destruction. One civilian oversight member, a woman named Dr. Sarah Williams, spoke carefully. Admiral, you refused a surrender from a species capable of communication and reason. You proceeded to exterminate them while they begged for mercy. Can you explain this decision? Holt had prepared for this question. The Havoc Swarm destroyed 17 Council worlds before we arrived. They consumed billions of sentient beings. They showed no mercy, accepted no surrenders, gave no quarter. When facing defeat, they suddenly discovered the language of peace. This was not genuine reform. It was survival instinct. You do not know that, Dr. Williams challenged. You assumed their motivations and acted on that assumption. What if you were wrong? What if they genuinely wanted to change? Then I made a mistake, Holt admitted. But the risk of being wrong was too great. If we had accepted their surrender and they later resumed expansion, how many more billions would have died? I chose certainty over hope. Admiral Chen leaned forward. Did you consider containment, quarantine, any option besides complete extermination? Yes, Holt replied. All those options required ongoing monitoring, enforcement, and faith that the swarm would honor agreements. The Council had been fighting them for 3 centuries using exactly those methods. They failed repeatedly. Containment does not work against an enemy that breeds exponentially and spreads through biological means. Captain Cross testified next. The swarm was not like fighting an army or even a hostile nation. It was fighting a plague. You do not negotiate with disease. You eliminate it. Dr. Reed's testimony was more difficult. He showed visible distress when describing his biological weapon. I designed it to be efficient and painless. That does not make it better. I killed billions of living organisms with that agent. I understand the moral weight. I carry it every day. Yet you would do it again, Chen asked. Reed hesitated. If faced with the same circumstances and the same threat, yes, I would do it again. That does not mean I feel good about it. It means I understand necessity. Commander Lane was the most direct. I followed orders. I did my job. If that is a crime, then charge me. But do not pretend we had better options. We went where Council forces failed. We used methods they could not stomach. We won. That is what we do. The tribunal deliberated for 2 days. When they reconvened, Admiral Chen read their finding. This tribunal finds that Reaper fleet operations against the Havoc swarm were conducted within the parameters of their authorized mission. While the methods employed are disturbing and raise serious ethical concerns, they were technically legal under human military code for existential threats. No court-martial is warranted. Holt felt no relief. Chen continued. However, this tribunal recommends immediate review of Reaper fleet protocols. The capacity for genocide, even against hostile species, should not be deployed without exhaustive consideration of alternatives. We further recommend mandatory psychological evaluation and counseling for all Reaper fleet personnel. After the formal session ended, Admiral Chen asked Holt to stay. They sat alone in the conference room. 400 billion, Chen said quietly. That number keeps appearing in my head. 400 billion living things dead by our order. I know, Holt replied. The Council is terrified of us now. Our intelligence suggests they are already discussing contingency plans in case humanity ever becomes hostile. They see us as saviors and potential threats simultaneously. Can you blame them? Holt asked. We showed them exactly what we are capable of when pushed. They would be foolish not to be afraid. Chen looked out the window at Geneva below. Earth Command is receiving requests from 3 other alien governments. They want Reaper fleet services. They have enemies they cannot defeat alone. They want us to do what we did to the swarm. Holt felt cold. What did Command say? They declined all requests. The Reaper fleet is being placed in reserve status. No deployments authorized except by direct Earth government consensus. You and your crews are being reassigned to defensive operations. They are putting us in a box, Holt observed. They are putting a weapon in storage because they are afraid of what it can do, Chen corrected. The Reaper fleet was supposed to be humanity's last resort. We used it. It worked. Now everyone is questioning whether we should have that capability at all. Holt stood. Is there anything else, Admiral? One more thing. The Council sent an official request. They want the Reaper fleet dismantled. They say its existence destabilizes galactic security. What are we telling them? Chen smiled grimly. That the Reaper fleet is an internal human military matter. We will not dismantle it, but we commit to only deploying it under extreme circumstances with full transparency to the Council. They will not like that answer. No, Chen agreed. But they will accept it because they fear what happens if they push too hard. We saved them. Now they are afraid we might save someone else the same way. Or worse, that someday they might be on the receiving end. Holt left the tribunal building and walked through Geneva's old streets. People moved around her, ordinary citizens living ordinary lives. None of them knew what she had done. None of them carried the weight of those 400 billion deaths. She found a quiet cafe and ordered coffee. It was bitter and strong. She sat there for an hour, watching the world go by. Captain Cross found her eventually. How did you know where I was? You are predictable, Admiral. Coffee and silence, always. They sat together, without speaking for several minutes. Do you think we were wrong? Holt finally asked. Cross considered the question seriously. I think we were right and wrong simultaneously. We saved billions of lives. We also committed genocide. Both things are true. We have to live with both. How? One day at a time, Cross replied. We accept that we are not heroes. We are not villains. We are people who made impossible choices in impossible situations. History will judge us, but we are still alive to be judged. So are billions of Council citizens. That has to mean something. Holt finished her coffee. The Reaper fleet is going into storage. We are being reassigned. Good, Cross said. I never want to command those ships again. But if called? Cross met her eyes. Then we answer, because that is what we do. We carry the burdens that others cannot. We make the choices that keep them up at night so they can sleep. It is not fair, it is not right, but it is necessary. They left the cafe together and walked back toward headquarters. The Reaper fleet waited in orbit, dark ships in the darkness, silent and deadly, waiting for the next time someone would need a weapon without conscience, without mercy, without hesitation. Humanity's greatest strength and greatest curse, the willingness to do what must be done, no matter the cost to their souls. 5 years passed. The Galactic Council rebuilt the 17 destroyed worlds slowly and carefully. Memorial stations orbited each one, dedicated to the billions who died in the Havoc swarm attacks, but there were no memorials for the swarm itself. No acknowledgement that 400 billion organisms had been systematically exterminated. Lieutenant Pav, now Commander Pav after promotion, visited one of these memorial stations. He read the names carved into crystalline walls, thousands of them, millions, citizens who had been consumed by the swarm before humanity intervened. He tried to feel grateful. Some days he managed it. Ambassador Grell had retired from public service. He spent his time writing a historical account of the Swarm War, as it was now called. He interviewed survivors, compiled records, and tried to make sense of what had happened. His book remained unfinished. Every time he reached the chapter on the Nexus destruction, his hands shook too much to continue. High Chancellor Bryn still led the council, but she looked older now. The decisions she had made weighed visibly on her. She had called humanity for help. She had authorized their operations. She had allowed genocide to proceed because the alternative was worse. These truths haunted her. The council passed new laws after the war. Biological weapons were banned with stricter enforcement. Extermination of sentient species was declared a crime against civilization. Military forces were required to accept surrenders under all circumstances. The laws were named the Nexus Protocols. Everyone understood the irony. Relations with humanity remained complicated. Trade continued. Cultural exchange happened. Diplomatic channels stayed open. But there was distance now, wariness. The Council could never forget what humanity was capable of when pushed. Human representatives at council meetings noticed the change. Conversations became more formal. Invitations to social events decreased. When humans spoke about military matters, the chamber went quiet with barely concealed fear. Earth accepted this new reality with grim understanding. They had saved the council. The council feared them for it. Such was the price of being willing to do terrible things for good reasons. Admiral Rebecca Holt retired from military service. She bought a small house in Montana, far from any city. She spent her days hiking, reading, and trying not to think about the Nexus. She failed at that last part consistently. She received letters sometimes, from council citizens whose worlds were saved. They thanked her for their lives, their children's lives, their futures. She never responded. What could she say? You are welcome for the genocide. Captain Vincent Cross took a teaching position at Earth's Naval Academy. He taught advanced tactics and strategic thinking. His lectures were brilliant but haunted. Students noticed he never smiled when discussing victory. He assigned reading about war crimes trials alongside tactical manuals. Dr. Alan Reed returned to civilian research. He studied beneficial biology now, developing medicines instead of weapons. He donated most of his salary to refugee organizations. It was not penance exactly, more like attempting to balance scales that could never truly balance. Commander Iris Lane stayed in active service but transferred to search and rescue operations. She flew missions saving people instead of killing them. It helped some. Not enough, but some. The Reaper fleet remained in orbit around Earth's moon. 30 dark ships in cold storage. Crew rotations kept them operational, but they never deployed. Earth Command had clear protocols now. The Reaper fleet would only be used if humanity itself faced extinction. Even then, it would require unanimous government approval. 3 times in 5 years, that approval was requested. Twice for alien conflicts that threatened council stability. once for a rogue AI threat that emerged in a distant system. All 3 times, approval was denied. Earth would not unleash the Reaper fleet for anything less than existential human threats. The galaxy learned to handle its own problems. Council military forces reformed, trained harder, adopted some human tactics while maintaining their principles. They became more effective without becoming merciless. It was possible to be strong without being cruel. The Council chose that path. But they knew the Reaper fleet waited, a weapon in reserve, a last resort, a reminder that humanity could become monsters if necessary. Commander Pav visited Earth once during these 5 years. He requested a meeting with Admiral Holt. She agreed, though she nearly refused. They met at a neutral location, a cafe in Denver. "Thank you for seeing me," Pav said. Holt nodded. She looked different in civilian clothes, smaller somehow, more human. "I came to tell you something," Pav continued. "The Council recently discovered evidence of swarm survivors, a small colony, maybe 300 organisms, hidden on a dead world in the outer rim. They are peaceful. They grow plants for food. They have developed basic art. They remember the war and choose differently now." Holt's expression did not change. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we debated for months about what to do. Some wanted to eliminate them immediately. Others wanted to quarantine them. We finally decided to observe and allow them to exist, provided they remain peaceful and isolated." "Good," Holt said quietly. "You think we made the right choice?" Pav asked. "I think you made your choice. Whether it is right remains to be seen. If those 300 become 3 million and threaten the galaxy again, then you made a mistake. If they remain peaceful and build a new culture, then you showed the mercy I could not. Do you regret your actions?" Holt looked at him directly. "Every single day, but I do not regret the outcome. Billions of Council citizens are alive because of what we did. Your people rebuilt. They have futures. That had to come at a cost. My peace of mind is a small price compared to their lives." Pav was quiet for a moment. "The Council fears humanity now, you know that." "Yes," Holt replied. "Good. Fear keeps people careful. It prevents conflicts. It encourages diplomacy. If the Council fears human military intervention, they will work harder to solve problems peacefully. Our reputation serves a purpose." "Is that why you did it?" Pav challenged. "To build a reputation?" "No," Holt said. "I did it to stop a threat. The reputation is a side effect, but it is a useful one." They finished their coffee in silence. Before leaving, Pav said one more thing. "History will not be kind to you, Admiral Holt. You know that." "Yes," she agreed. "But history is written by the living. Those billions who survive will write it. Some will call us saviors. Others will call us monsters. Both will be correct. I can live with that." Pav returned to Council space. He filed his report. The swarm survivors would be allowed to exist under observation. It was a small act of mercy, but it mattered. Earth's moon hung in the night sky, and orbiting it, invisible to the naked eye, the Reaper fleet waited. 30 ships built for one purpose: total war, merciless efficiency, the elimination of threats too great for conventional forces to handle. They sat in darkness, powered down but ready, waiting for the day someone would need them again, waiting for the moment when mercy failed and only ruthlessness remained. Admiral Holt looked up at the moon from her house in Montana. She knew the fleet was there. She knew what it represented: humanity's insurance policy, their ultimate deterrent, their willingness to become monsters so others could remain civilized. She poured a drink and sat on her porch. The stars stretched above her, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the Council rebuilt. The swarm survivors grew plants and made art. 300 organisms given a chance her orders had denied 400 billion others. She raised her glass to the moon, to the dark ships waiting there, to the crews who had followed her orders without hesitation, to the burden they all carried. To necessary evils, she whispered. May they remain necessary. May they remain rare. May we never stop regretting them. The night offered no response, just silence and stars and the weight of choices that could never be unmade. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it was truly capable of. The Council had begged for help. Humanity responded by unleashing its most merciless fleet. They won. They saved billions. They committed genocide. All of these things were true. And in the darkness above Earth, the Reaper fleet waited, patient, silent, ready for the next time someone would need the monsters to fight monsters, ready for the next impossible choice, ready to carry the burden that civilized species could not bear. Because that was humanity's role now, the galaxy's weapon of last resort, the species willing to do what must be done, no matter the cost to their souls. They had accepted this burden. They would carry it until the end, not proudly, not happily, but with grim determination and the knowledge that someone had to be willing to make these choices. Someone had to be willing to be merciless, so others could show mercy. Humanity had answered that call, and the galaxy would never forget what they saw when the monsters came to save them.